Welcome to Art Talk. I'm Laura Womack, and with me is Technical Director Jen McHugh.
Hi, everybody.
Tonight we're talking with Jennifer Hansen Rolli, well known for her lovely Impressionist style paintings. Jennifer was only about 9 years old when she began painting along with her father on his plein air outings. These trips rooted in Jennifer a deep relationship with nature, one that's visible in her painting even now that she has her own children. Jennifer's Impressionist style is employed both in loving landscapes of Bucks County, as well as in her genre paintings of children playing in a creek or climbing a sycamore tree. Her paintings are bathed in light. She has a feeling for dramatic clouds, emphasizing their form with strong brush strokes. She's equally at home painting the Metropolitan Opera's Sputnik chandeliers or the cavernous hall of Grand Central Station. Jennifer's father was her first teacher, sharing the fundamentals of color, light, and equipment. She later earned a BFA in communication design from Kutztown University. For 15 years, she ran her own Philadelphia-based firm, Hansen Design, and her work was featured in trade publications such as Communication Arts, Graphics, and Print. Her fine art was first exhibited in 2007, and it's since been collected internationally. She's written and illustrated 3 children's books and illustrated another. Jennifer paints covers for Bucks County Magazine and ads for Visit Bucks County. She's a Salmagundi Club award winner and a frequent exhibitor over 15 years at Phillips Mill Community Association. Her painting, Valley Below August Skies, is on exhibition with Art in Embassies at the U.S. Ambassador's residence in Kigali, Rwanda. Jenny is one of Silverman Gallery's original Core 4 in Buckingham, PA. Welcome to Art Talk, Jennifer Hansen Rolli.
Hello. Thank you, Laura, for inviting me tonight, and Jen for your technical wizardry. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it ever since we first talked and connected. That was a great day.
That's terrific, Jenny. I'm going to have a trouble with Jen and Jenny tonight. Um, welcome to all of you
You
in the
wouldn't be the first.
Please join the conversation by putting your questions in the Q&A. And now let's see some art. Okay, well, we're looking at photographic art. Jenny, tell us about
I
what.
know. Well, this is my very meager beginnings, but not in number of children in the family. I was born in Bluffton, Indiana, and we quickly moved to Yardley, Pennsylvania. And I am the youngest of 5 children. And this is really important because this is the basis of like how I went about my life, by just taking so many chances as the youngest of 5. There was really no rules by the time I came around, and I was always out on my own, making my own way. And anyway, I just never had anybody giving me restrictions. So I had to make my own way and figure out whether I landed or not on my feet, how to make it right. So, and that's kind of been my path throughout my life. When something lays itself in front of me, I always try it. Or if I think up something, if I really have a driving desire to do it, sometimes it's hard to leave what I've been doing, but I get an itch so bad that I can't stop the pull, and I just continue on and power on to figure out the next phase of whatever I'm getting myself into. But I also have confidence that there's always a way. And one of the things I did say that I did want to talk about is, that's how I approach every painting. I mean, I always have problems with just about every painting. It's a godsend when I don't have a problem, but there's always an issue for me to figure out. I'm self-taught. I'm always reteaching myself things. I can forget what I've already learned. But when I get caught up in whatever the particular problem is, it can really frustrate the hell out of me. But in the back of my mind, I know eventually I'm going to solve that puzzle. And, it could take to the end of that day, or it could at the end of the week or 2 weeks. But I know I will finally get to the end and figure that out. I love puzzles. So
Well, that's great. Jen, do we have some artworks of the painting variety to look at?
Yeah. Also, you had mentioned like we never stayed in a hotel. My dad was an outdoorsman. I have such a love for nature and always being outside and for gardening. But we always went on our vacations. He stuffed all seven of us in that Volkswagen van with the canoe on top, all our belongings, and three tents. And that's how we spent our summers. And my dad was always sure to get us out on vacation every summer for like a couple of weeks. We'd go out for an escapade, but usually somewhere up and down the East Coast, usually up, up, up.
I
But
love these pictures. It's such a breeze from the past and so Americana. It
yeah,
looks like you guys had a great time. So,
my dad, he made that canoe.
wow.
It was fiberglass, yeah. And we would paddle that thing up and down well, down. Can't really paddle up, but the Delaware River and
Wow.
different waterways in the area. Yeah.
So he was clearly a big influence on you.
Huge. Yes, he was. Yep. To all of his children, he was.
Yeah. All right, let's see that picture. We got a little tantalizing peek.
Okay.
Mhm.
This is Two Boys Out on a Limb. This was a commission that I did for actually a lovely family here in Newtown. And I took their sons out to Tyler Park and just let them ramble around and just do whatever they want. I don't pose kids for commissions. I love to just paint them on my own as well, just having them in action and they're just natural. And for me, my paintings always, come out the best that way. When I've ever tried to do more of like a stiff portrait, it's not nowhere near as fun as something like this. And this was on the cover of Montgomery magazine, one of their summer issues.
So there's a lot of dappled light, I think, from looking at your artwork, Jenny, I think that's a particular sort of light
Hmm.
addition
That's
that you really have a feeling for.
it is what I'm attracted to paint. And as a lot of artists are, but I love the strength and the contrast of the shadow with the light. And it's not always easy to paint. It's not, and it's a lot of play on color, a lot of use of complementary colors to get the light to pop off of the cool. But it's difficult but fun too, So I always enjoy doing it, and that is what I always want to paint. I want to see if I can pull that off. It's the things that catch my eye. They'd be so simple, like the light on the eave of a porch or a pole, I that could be just the painting that draws everybody in. So that's
Yeah.
what works for me. Yes.
Yeah, this is a lovely painting that we're looking at right now. Jem popped it up for us, which I really appreciate. We won't mention it, but this was purchased from Phillips Mill a couple of years ago, and I just remember it's such a great, I think we all can identify with, think back to our own childhoods. I grew up in Los Angeles, so this was not my childhood, but it just has this universal appeal
Hmm.
that makes you happy. You
What do you
paint,
think that is?
sorry?
Where do you think that is?
I have no idea.
It's actually Central Park. These kids that were all out, it's called September Recess, and all these kids came running down and playing ball. I've done a few other paintings from this whole series. It was a beautiful day, and these kids were, just in actions, just the way I liked them, running in and out of the sunlight. So yes, it's a New York City kids on recess in Central Park.
That's great. And there's so much action. Even the I mean the two in the background who on the
Mhm.
left playing, that's obviously action, but even the poses of the other four who, are as it were standing still. I mean, there's still a lot of motion there. And kids are so kinetic. How do
Mhm.
you paint kids? How do you capture them? Do you take pictures or what?
I take pictures. Yep, I take lots of pictures. And this one it was really hard to choose which one to paint. I mean, each one was more interesting than the last, just the connections between the kids. And it isn't, there really are lacking expression in their faces here. You can see a little bit of shape to the face, but it's really more in the gestures of the bodies
Yes.
and the sizing of the girls. And, it and, like you can tell the ones to the left are much more in motion, but the other ones are definitely chatting it up.
So you said something when we were looking at the last picture that I'm sure applies here too. You said about the dappled light that you use complementary colors to bring it out. Did I catch that right? What does that mean?
Yes. So complementary colors would be colors on the opposite of the color wheel. So, like, let's just take the basic 6 colors. Like blue would be opposite of orange, and purple would be opposite of yellow. So if you look here, you can see that my lights are they have a warm tone to them. Okay, even though like the secondary ones might have a blue tone, but they're banked up. I'm adding, you can't see it in the color, like say down the tree trunk, you can see all like the golden light hitting the trunk, right? But I've added like cooler tones, like the blues and the purples to the browns. So it just hints it that way. And it really just, it's just a magical thing that just helps make the yellow and the warmth or the opposite color pop. Like say you had red against green. If you can almost kind of imagine how they just kind of vibrate against each other. When you look at a red against green, you know,
Sure.
that
Jenny, does it work as is it a special thing that you do for the dappled light, or is that something that you do generally?
I generally do that.
Yeah,
I mean, I generally have light in most of my paintings.
right. Okay. All right. So Jen McHugh. We've got Jen and Jenny tonight. She's great at putting relevant links in the chat. So she's just
Yes.
in there for you on complementary colors and how they help pop. Let's take a look at this one and then we'll get to the first questions. Yeah, tell
Okay.
us about this.
So this is three sisters, and the original commission was to have them together in a painting. And for a commission, people definitely want their children to get their features. I'm like, I never promised what degree they could be. It could just be a profile. Um, but like with the kids on the playground, they were just more simple. There was a lot more, compressed into the image. But here it's a focus on each child. So anyway, she wanted all three in one painter. That's just what we were talking about. And then just to warm up, I did this center one. And I'm like, and it came out great. And I'm like, I'm already 1/3 of the way there. And it was just, and I said, listen to Miriam, this is Miriam's commission. Miriam, I'm going to show you this. You're not obligated to it, but I like the way this is going. Maybe we could do 3 separate paintings, and she was game. She loved it. And it ended up being part of the 3. And each child could have its individual painting. And, like a smaller, quick sketch of the 3 we could do some other time. So she loved that idea.
You
And
know,
these,
what I find so interesting here, Jenny, is these are first of all, the expressions on each of the children is so different and so I'm assuming characteristic of personality.
Mhm.
Love that. But I'm also, looking a little closer, I'm fascinated by the way these wild tangles of flowers, they look very naturalistic, but they're almost twining in and out of each other like a William Morris, you know,
Yeah.
just textile design. Is he any influence for you?
No, no, not at all. You know, it's just the way it worked out because they were nestled into this beautiful garden down in Washington Crossing, that house that we were discussing earlier. There's a beautiful garden in front of them, and now that they've restored all the buildings there, it's got a bit trampled. So I don't know what it's going to look like this year. But the year that I painted this was a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, and they just and I added to it. I added lib to them, especially the peony one, but. No, that it just kind of, I have a love of flowers, gardens, and just kind of came out that way. I started with the one that kind of led me into the other ones that kind of had to follow suit because they were going to be used as a triplet, whatever.
They have such a graceful way of interacting those flowers. But okay,
Mhm.
well let's get going with the questions and answers. We're already lining them up.
Are you going to pick the questions? I don't see them.
So no, Jen is going to read them for us, and that's one of the reasons we love her. She helps us out that
All
way.
right, Jen.
All right. So we have two questions that are pretty much the same. Anonymous and Rick asked, what artist, famous or not, inspires you the most in your work? And then Rick asked more specifically, which, if any, of the historic Bucks County Impressionist painters most inspired you and why?
Okay, so my favorite is Lathrop, and he definitely inspired me, and especially that was who I looked to for the most part when I was first painting like 20 years ago, and falling in love with the Bucks County Impressionists, and even before I started painting, um, I just loved his thick paint and his brushstrokes and the ethereal feel to his paintings. So I definitely leaned on him heavily to, develop my style. I definitely was not nailing it in the beginning, or ever, but I got more into the thicker and thicker brush strokes and use of my paint and the texture of it to be a whole part of my painting as well. Um, and I sometimes my paintings are harsher, I would say, or just more contrasty than his were. But definitely he influenced me in the very beginning and still continues to. I still look, and all of them. I'm painting the same landscapes that all the impressionists here painted. So I always refer back to them to tackle something, and or even get some ideas if something doesn't look like a good view to me, and I find something like, hey, you know what, I have an image similar to that. I should paint that. But I the French impressionist I love is Vuillard. So I use a lot of his technique of leaving a tinted canvas to show up around the edges of what I'm painting. We'll show you that a little bit, and when you see my how-to. Okay. But anyway, that is definitely where I stand on picking two.
It's interesting that you chose Lathrop because a lot of people choose Garber or Renfield. So and of course Lathrop was really important to the founding of Phillips Mill. So
Yeah.
love that. Why
Yeah.
Lathrop in particular?
I was very much drawn to his skies, which I love skies. So I guess it was he was a lot more about skies than the other painters. That, like more than Garber. Garber was a lot more about like the landscape, and skies were a smaller part, and they were very much broken up with trees. Um, and Redfield, I think so too. So I'm just thinking about it right now as you ask me, but I guess that is probably why. But I also loved the softness of his paintings.
Yeah,
They weren't like fuzzy or anything. It just was rich and soft at the same time, and had the light and dark contrasts that I like.
yeah. Okay, great. Sorry, Jen, let's go back to those questions.
No. So Diane wanted to know, she said, I love your New York City building paintings. What inspires you about New York?
I love New York. I've always loved New York. My mom used to bring me to New York with her on Wednesdays. She's the one that showed me New York from when I was much younger. When my siblings, as the youngest, my mom, she always taught piano and voice from our house. So after school, we always had kids coming for lessons. And then eventually, she started taking all the money that she earned for that whole week and buying herself voice lessons in New York City. She'd go up, spend it was like $60. I remember $60 for these lessons. This is back in probably the late 70s, early 80s. Anyway, so she would go and she would get opera voice lessons from this great teacher. And then she eventually started performing there. So, and that was always on Wednesdays. So she would teach on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, take all that money and get her train ticket and her lesson in New York for all her suburbs stuff that she was doing. So anyway, she would invite me to go along a lot. And and my sisters, she did as well. And eventually I ended up working in New York. So I've always understood, how to get around in New York. I've never been frightened of it. Ended up working there out of college. And New York is like Bucks County, you know, it has its many moods and its many little areas so close to each other. So it looks beautiful at all different times of the year, just like it does here, you know, and the wet streets and the umbrellas, or the snow, or the dappled light, and all the great buildings and architecture. I don't know, there's just so many different, it's so untouched for me. There's so many paintings yet for me to paint of New York. So it's just a wealth of inspiration to me.
Okay, let's take one more question and then let's look at some more artwork. We'll get all the questions, but we want to look at art too.
Okay. Jacqueline wants to know, what medium do you use, and do you use only primary colors?
Um, you know what? Since I'm virtually self-taught, yes, my father, it's all oil. I use all oil. My dad taught me with oil. Even when I illustrated my children's book, they are all in oil. It's the only thing that I like because I can scrape it off and start over when I make a mistake. Acrylics and watercolor, a card plate is a card plate, and I'm always reworking. But anyway, so that's what's been ingrained in me. And I use different brands for different colors. I don't use just primary. I use a lot of in-between colors. I almost wouldn't want like a classic painter to look at my palette because and it's always different and it's always set up different. So I don't know. I am not beholden to anything. I have certain colors I would never live without, but I'm
What are
all
those?
oh it's a green gold. I can show you, but a green gold and ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, which are givens, and Mars yellow I absolutely love. And I don't know. I've discovered these new little incredible pinks that help me get like the inside of flowers to glow. They're
That's,
almost like neon. So just a little dab will do you.
I'm hearing the problem solving happening.
Yes.
Let's take a look at those skies.
Okay. Ah, skies above New Hope. This is from not Baldpate. This is from Goat Hill on the Lambertville side, looking over. A lot of artists have painted this view, but this was a particularly puffy, cloudy day. This is one of my favorite kind of skies to paint. Yet you have the interesting warm grays, or however you want to do it, shadowing the clouds. You know, they're backlit with the sunshine and the gold light. And I probably have a little lavender in those clouds to make that golden edge around the clouds to pop. And then again, you see the massively dappled light from each cloud on the landscape.
Oh. And you like big brush strokes too, don't you, Jenny?
Yes, you know, from illustrating, you know, I was an illustrator for quite a few years, and even like did it at the same time as when I was painting. You know, I always try to go back to get too tight. And even when people ask me for tips when they want to start picking up painting, I'm like, use a big brush, work quick, set a timer. And I love a lot of paint on the brush. So I could go back in with a little brush, you know, add some detail, but I think I'm best when I use a nice larger brush, you know, depending on the size of the painting. I'm just doing a little hydrangea right now, and I got too detailed. I scraped it all off, and I went back in with a big brush. So much better. So much
But
better.
what about in the land here? I mean, that looks pretty fine.
Mhm.
So are you switching brushes there?
Oh yeah, I use, you know, 6 brushes. I could use for a large landscape like this one, I could have used 6 brushes and different size brushes. But, you know, I'll go back in with the little bits if it needs it. Sometimes I put it in and it didn't need it. And I'll take it out.
Right. Okay. Let's see what else do we have, Jen? Okay, now here we're almost abstract.
Yes, this is a study just on cardboard of our canal, and it was a study of the painting that's actually behind me. This is a very large 4 by 5 foot painting of the canal, obviously, but at dusk. My husband and I ride it all the time, so I see it in its many moods. And I love doing the little piece here. I love doing studies. I could do studies all day long, but I got to do the big paintings. And anyway, this one was a lot of work, but I love the way it came out. And it's kind of ironic that I have it here backing me. I'm in my new studio here, and I needed to quickly set up a little corner to talk to everybody. And ironically, I picked this painting to put behind me because it took up so much space. And nice background.
Yeah, it's beautiful. They're both beautiful. To me, they're so different. It's interesting that the one is a study for the other. I mean, I can see the color echo, but you've got a completely different perspective, and the feel
Maybe,
really different.
yeah.
What do you think? I see you thinking there, Jenny.
Yeah, because I don't know if you can see, like, you see, I'm sorry, I have a crooked neck too. So you see here the dripping pinks here, and that's the dripping pinks that you see in the study.
Yeah.
So it is facing the right way. But I expanded it way out. I had a lot of different views of this. And and I have to work for the different formats that I'm doing here. Like that,
Yeah.
this one is horizontal, that one's vertical.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Okay. I really enjoy this one.
Haitian Harbor.
Yeah.
This is a harbor up in Nantucket. It's not titled Haitian Harbor. I think it's called Mattakit or something like that. And I have shown for a good part of my painting career, I've shown at some coastal galleries. I am currently not, but I'm looking for one. It's a little bit, it's an extra leg for me to care for every time I'm in a different gallery. So I'm very happy where I am right now with, the Silverman Gallery. And anyway, but I do love to paint the coast. So I have a lot of coastal paintings that I've created over the last 20 years.
Great. The color palette seems very different. I mean, you suddenly have all of these great greeny yellows.
They're not unlike the skies above New Hope. The
Okay.
blues and greens. You don't have the dark shadows as much here. But those are my favorite colors, the blues and the greens.
Okay, great. Well, Jen, shall we go back and take some more questions?
Sure.
They're stacking up.
Okay. Let's see. Have you considered teaching? And if so, how? Live videos?
Um, I have considered teaching. I've gone into so many schools, and I know that's not what they're talking about, but they're talking about, teaching, oil painting. But I enjoy children, and I enjoy going in, and I have some friends that are teachers, and I'll go in and just do like a couple hours with their class and do like a reading with my books and do art with them. But it's a whole nother aspect, teaching, and I really don't see myself as an art teacher because, like I said, I'm always teaching myself. So I don't know. I could probably do a group class of people that totally want to start from the beginning.
So, Jenny, how do you teach yourself? Are you reading a lot of books? Are you looking at analysis of other people's paintings? How does one teach oneself to paint?
Just simply doing trial and error. Someone can tell you something how to do it, and until you do it yourself, it's not real. It doesn't become a true memory. And so I'm teaching myself every day, like I said, and but I've evolved over time. When I look at my first paintings, I think I had a pretty good idea of color, but it lacked texture, and it just some things that I've really learned and ingrained into each one of my paintings as I've gone on. And sometimes I look back on some of my older paintings, I like, wow, I did nail it back then. I did know what I was doing. And then, some of it's innate, but innate in a sense that I've been doing art my entire life. So I've been cued that way by myself, like my own thinking, to always be looking. And then when you start painting, you're looking at other people's painting, but I'm also looking at everything around me and how would that work? No, that wouldn't work. And you see someone else made it work. So, um, but I do learn from other people for sure, but I'm also every day is a class at my own easel. Like when I went to France was a huge learning experience for me, something that I packed up and brought home with me, and it wasn't being taught at all. It was all things that I learned myself by doing my own work in my own studio there about how I worked.
Should we go there? I will definitely get to the questions, but I think that's such a great opportunity to skip to some of the pictures you've shared with us from that. I'd really like to hear more about how, going someplace different out of your usual experience without any instruction.
Mhm.
Why was that such a learning experience?
Well, how I ended up going, my children were out of my house 2 years ago. I'm like the last of my kids. I have 3 children, have gone off on their own. And, I'm just there knocking around in my house. I really, even though now we have all that much more house, I've always worked from home. I didn't do my other jobs from home. When I was a graphic designer, I had a great studio in Philadelphia. But when I started painting, it was something I could do with, all day long. And then I could just put the paint brushes down when the kids came in the house. But eventually everything just felt so hollow to me after everyone was gone and I'm just working there. I really started to yearn for the days when I went to work in my old studio in Philadelphia. And I looked and I looked and I really couldn't find anything interesting or that would work. A friend of mine generously offered her garage space. She has a beautiful garage with a 2-story garage in my town, and I painted there, and that was wonderful. It was perfect. She was very gracious, but I needed a place to call my own, that I could just drag all my stuff there. And I was still, again, wasn't finding it. And then I saw someone who went to this residency in France. I'm like, that's a good way for me to at least get some other ideas and get me out of the house. So I applied, I got it, but it took a year and some time for my session to come up. You get accepted, then you get placed in a session. So when I went, it got me out of my comfortable spot. And I had to pack up only what I needed or what I thought I needed and really really cut all the fat. I went there and I had a beautiful studio. And it was just my own space, my own little solitude. And it really confirmed that that is what I needed. Just a space to call my own, no interruptions, and no distractions to things and I was really beginning, because I didn't have the kids to cut the time off at home, coming home. I kind of just, everything was all work time and just was one big spacious workspace and time zone for me, that I needed a break from that. But I could work all hours at this studio, and it really got me back in the groove of painting. I painted every day for like 13 days straight. And I really didn't even want to pack up my brushes then. I loved it so much. And the energy of being around other people, especially because they were artists and writers, it was, and that was what I was most nervous about, being with all these different people that I didn't know. And it was actually the most glorious part about it. I loved each and every one of them so much. And they were a big part of my growth there. We all had growth there in our own individual ways. I definitely came back a different person and more confident and more clear on what I needed to do.
That's terrific. So happy for you. Tell us about what we're looking at here.
So the living quarters were in this beautiful chateau in this little French town that's kind of like it's not falling apart by any means, but the population is dwindling there, and the people that own the chateau, they took it over in let's say 6 years ago, and they've really brought life back to this town. So they've redone the chateau. We all stayed in the chateau. They've been buying up a couple of the properties when they go up for sale, and they're trying to make it an art destination. And anyway, this was a painting of the interior of the chateau. And I didn't have all the time to finish it, but it is totally finished. I liked the way I left part of it unfinished. You know, I learned to take risks there. There was no reason for me behind any of my paintings there. It wasn't like, okay, you got to paint this for a show or anything. I just was painting for myself for the first time in my life. And so here I was experimenting, being really loose and flown, even though it is architecture. It's very different from me. And there is a figure on the sofa, and this was exhibited. You see the old fireplace. This was one of the little properties that they bought up in town. I was going to say some of the people lived in the little properties that they've redone in the town. It's an amazing place, Orquevaux, France. What they're doing there is just incredibly special for France and for artists. And if anybody's an artist out there, take a chance and go. Here I am. I didn't want to let go.
I think
I'm
we have
going back.
Jim, we've got a picture of the studio as well.
That was my view out my window. And this is, yeah, that was the view out the chateau of my bedroom. And the next image is my studio.
Fabulous.
Oh, it was the best.
Yeah, nice.
Really nice. And they
Take
just
some-
accommodated you. Yeah, it was really, you just pounded your canvases into the wall. I worked on raw canvas. I gessoed it. They had a little art store there that was open for 30 minutes, like twice. So you'd run in there and get what you needed when it was open.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, that was new for me, just to work right on the wall. So that's what I'm doing here now in my new studio, just working right on the wall.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's so freeing.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Jen, let's get those questions in. There's some good questions in the Q&A.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was muted, but I'm not. Frank says, I always look forward to receiving the Bucks County magazines to see the latest painting. Do you use photos for your sources, or do you also do plein air at times?
I do plein air rarely, and I actually packed up all kinds of plein air, like a plein air box to do in France, and I just never got out of my studio. I'm a studio painter, but one of these days I'm going to venture out and really exercise plein air. That's how my dad taught me plein air. We always were outside painting. But all of my covers of Bucks County magazines are painted from photo, and they're just photographs of my work. So I work from photos, like let's say 90% of the time. Occasionally I will go out and paint, but it's so much more rare. The things that I like to paint happen early in the morning, later in the afternoon, like when the light is long and casting and interesting, those golden hours on either end of the day. And those were the times when I was taking care of my kids or running, and I could only take pictures from the car window or go on jaunts just after I dropped them off or pick them up. But now I have anything I want to do, right? I have all day now. But that's just kind of how I ended up becoming a studio painter, which I love. I love a cozy studio.
Jen, what's up next?
Allie asked, is there any location or country you would like to visit to paint a landscape or use for a backdrop?
I would love to go back to Ireland and paint, and Scotland, and definitely Italy. You know, I've painted images of, I did paint images from Ireland, but that place is right on my alley with the fields and the animals and the huge skies and the long clouds. So yes, I would love to go back to Ireland and lots of other places in America.
Fabulous.
We have two that are not questions but comments, which I always love to throw in. Anonymous said, I'm a 20-year-old artist and you just inspire me so much. Not a question, but I feel something within your paintings that is so nostalgic and serene.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
then Bill said, not a question, but I just wanted to say how wonderful it is to see how you express your heart in everything you paint. I love your work. Long-time fan.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
Oh, and Allie's from Ireland. So,
She is?
yeah, Allie
Okay.
Fitzsimmons. Okay.
Come on, let's go paint together.
Do we want to do one more, Laura? One more
Yeah,
question?
let's do it.
Okay. Lynn asked, your interiors are quietly refined with a wide spectrum of white hues. This gives a lovely realism and lightness to the room. Do architectural and fabrics influence the scene?
Yes, I love fabrics. I love to like simplify them in my painting, but still get the gist of it, even little fancy fabrics. And what was the other part of it? Architecture? Love
Architecture
architecture.
and fabrics.
I love architecture and fabric. Yes. I don't know if you have any interiors of mine there, but and it's usually incorporates some kind of big window for my interiors as well. Um, and how that light casts on all the different elements there. And I do enjoy it. Not too much architecture. Oh, yes, that has a lot of architecture. That ceiling, that was not easy. I loved painting those lights though, and the windows and the dripping of, not dripping, but the streaks of the figures. But that window, that ceiling,
Why was it so hard?
you're starting all the way there and pulling your brush up and not being too wiggly. And finally you just give up and you said, you know, if everything's just a little wiggly, it all blends. It all goes okay. That's what I tell my kids. If it's all just a little bit off, you're fine.
Is that a philosophy of life there, Jenny?
Yes, yes.
I think we also have an interior at the Met, which again, you said windows.
Big windows.
We'll give Jen a minute because we pop around in the slides a little bit,
Who's
which
that poster one,
yeah,
Jen?
with the
Okay.
there we go.
Okay. Let me.
Hmm. So what about textiles? So, you know, everybody knows I'm who knows me knows I'm interested in textiles. Do they influence you, Jenny, when you're painting an interior?
I wouldn't say they influence me, but they might interest me to paint, you know, if they're there and I feel like painting it, you know, instead of just filling it all in. I'm picturing like a chair in an interior.
Right. And there are all the Dutch masters who did, you know, a lot of detail in lace and things like that. I've always thought textiles would be hard to paint.
So like when I go back, let's go back to Vuillard. I love the way he dealt with patterns. You know, it was just instead of being, I don't have the patience to do it strict, like, you know, so realistic. But I
Right.
love the way he just kind of Greeks it in and he nails it, you know, and just shows his depth. Even when he's Greeking it in, you can still see the folds of the fabric.
Nice. And you do a lot with white as well. And I'm always fascinated by how painters handle white in
Mhm,
fabric,
mhm.
in particular, but just white, it seems like painters put so many different colors in to get white, and that is just always so mind-boggling for me.
So one thing, you know, I don't really use linseed oil. My dad did teach me how to use it, but I really don't use any thinner to my paints. And a lot of times, you know, for my lighter colors, my medium is my white. You know, that's how I get the
Oh,
thickness to my paints. And I have a couple different whites that I use, but I never use it just clean. I wouldn't say never, but just for the most part, it's never clean white. You can see like here when looking for pockets. It's a very white painting, but
yeah.
it's not, there's not white in it.
Yeah.
But
Tell us about this painting. I love how, I mean, you just feel the character of the child. The way children move is just like a little bit sweetly clumsy. And I don't know how you conveyed that here, but it's there.
You know, this is my youngest, and she would just hang out with me all the time when I was first painting, and I dressed her up, and she loved to be dressed up, so that was perfect. It was a perfect, and she would do anything for a lollipop. So I'm like, come on, just go up there and walk around. And this was the Wrightstown Library, and she just went up on the steps, and you know, she was just walking around for me. So I just took a lot of pictures. And the sun was perfect there, hitting just the edge of her coat, and then her ankle. That was it. And then her looking, it's called looking for pockets. And, you know, could have been looking in her pocket, but looking for pockets, I don't know what she was doing, but it was a cute name for it. And this was, you know, very early on when I first started painting. And this is probably to this day, my favorite painting I ever painted. I did another painting for myself of this. I sold it. I sold this painting years ago. And, sorry that I did that, but I did. And now, so I painted it similar. I have so many cute images from this day. And it was her with my mother's dog. So, and I have that one in my dining room.
And do you not love it as much as this one?
I do, but you know, no, I don't. I love this one the best.
Yeah, because the magic happens the first time, right?
It does. It does. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh. Jen, we've got a few more questions. We're narrowing in on the hour, so let's see what we can do.
Okay. Janet Schuler said hello and thank you for
Hi,
speaking about
Jen.
your color technique. I admire your work because it looks nothing like mine. I work tight and find it harder to be looser. What artists do you admire whose work is nothing like yours?
Ooh, Vermeer. um, Manet. I love Manet. Picasso. Um, you know, I love abstract art. I love it. I love abstract art. I can't do it for the life of me. Everyone says, "Oh, anybody can do that." No way.
So expand on that, Jenny.
Expand on that
Yeah, why can't anybody do it? Why can't you do it?
because it's just it pours out differently. Art is just seeing differently from a person. Everybody's different how they see what they want to put out there. And I can't see it like that, but I do appreciate it. I have a few pieces myself, and anyway, I also enjoy, you know, going to look at it in different galleries and museums.
Have you tried to do abstract paint?
Yeah, but they all end up pretty much impressionist.
Interesting. You
Uh,
are who you are.
I like I said, I always go like I try to go for the big brush.
Right. Yeah.
So, um, you know, talking to my friend back there, she needs to go with a big brush and just look in sections of values on objects or whatever she's looking to paint or a landscape and just fill in loosely and set a timer. And I need to take my own advice.
Okay. Next question, please, Jen.
Um, okay. Diane wants to know, what do you use to photograph? iPhone or camera?
iPhone. It's with me always.
They're great.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They can capture a good image.
Mhm.
Anonymous asked, any advice for becoming a full-time artist as a mom? How did you manage it all, and are you consistent at this stage in your career?
It's a great question.
It's a great question. So I'm going to work backwards. Yes, I am still consistent. I've always been a worker. I always loved to be doing something, doing my own thing. I worked all through raising my kids. You know, I worked from home for the most part. I had my studio in Philadelphia. I had a babysitter Monday through Thursday, um, before I started painting 20 years ago. My oldest child is 29. So for those first years, I had babysitters and that's how I managed it. And then they went to Montessori school from the time they were 3. So I drop them off, I get to work, and I just knew I had that block of time, and I knew I was paying to have someone have my child. So I never horsed around. I was always anxious to get to my work. So I never had like creative blocks per se. I was always excited to go do my own thing. So that's how I managed that. And I was, as a full-time artist, I didn't make a lot of money at first. As a graphic designer, I made a ton of money. I made a lot of lovely dollars doing that. But just I've been there, done that, and then I was over with that after about 15 years, 20 years, and then been a painter ever since. And it doesn't happen right away, but you incrementally get better, and you start attracting more and more collectors, and you can start raising your prices, and just the value of your work. You have to value your work, and everybody else will follow along, if you'll find the people who love your work. But you just have to keep working at it. You got to work at it.
Yep.
And you can't do it while your kids are there. I thought I could. You can't. You need to have your own private time to work.
Right.
And it's a lot to give up. It's the age-old hardship for women.
That's right. Absolutely. Okay, Jen.
Okay, Janine Wade asked, your figures are so
Janine.
loose and gestural while capturing the personality of the subject. Definitely reminiscent of the yard. And who I also love. Are there any people you would especially like to paint going forward?
Like, if I were to mention somebody, like there's nobody really famous that I would like to paint. Like I love to paint children, any children. I've painted children of all kinds, grown-up girls, little girls, toddlers, all ages of boys. So that's what I'm always attracted to, and I love to paint women. So and anybody interesting, anyone who's sitting in the light just right is what attracts me. It's not somebody's certain features or certain hair. It's just the way the mood is around them and their aura. So
Take one more question and then let's look at some work.
Someone asked, is there a print G-clay available of the painting Field and Farm?
not at this time, but I think I know which one that is. Ooh, I've painted a lot of Field and Farm. But that sounds more recent. That's a more recent painting. Field and Farm. I think
So if somebody wanted, because I know you're doing some products with your art,
yes.
Jenny. If
Yes.
somebody wanted a specific painting, could they do could you do that for them? Or here we're looking at your mouse pad and phone stand. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So more recently, I have it just kind of fell into it. I threw this big painting that I did up of these red peonies on a phone case. I'm very good graphically and on the computer for my graphic design days. And it came out, I loved it. And I ordered myself one and my daughter's one, and everybody started loving them. So it just kind of rolled, and people wanted them. And so I started making them, and then I decided to start JHR Design, like a little side business. And it's pretty consuming of my time, but it's very interesting and fun to figure out. And I love creating the products. So getting back to the G clays, on my site, I have two websites, and one is Jennifer Hansen Rolli Designs, where you can buy my products. And I have a whole tab of G clay prints that you can get there. So and the Field and Farm is not on there, but you can just message me and send me I can look it up in my data bank and see which exactly painting that is. But you can message me and we could talk about it for sure. And I just have a suggestion of, there's probably 20 paintings on there that are available right now at certain sizes. So yeah, that's what I've been working on since over the last 6 months. I've been working on this. So it's pretty new, but it's exciting. It's just always try something new to keep your energy and your brain working, is what I say. And this is what enticed me at this moment in time that I decided to dip my toe into, and now I'm knee deep.
Great. Okay, so we've got 3 more questions and we're at the top of the hour. We promised we'd do them, so let's take these quickly and get people their answers.
Allie Fitzsimmons asked, would you consider making your beautiful phone cases for other phone types apart from the iPhones?
Oh, well, I do make them for the Samsung, 4 models. Okay. But they don't offer anything else besides that. For this particular phone case that I'm tried and true, I love this phone case that I offer. So hopefully, but she can message me if she's really burning for one. She'd have to tell me what it is, because there are other phone cases that I could do that offer it.
Terrific.
Diane asked, do you have grandchildren yet? You obviously love to capture children, their world. So I hope that this is a special time for you.
Yeah, no grandchildren yet, but you never know when. You never know. I do have one married daughter, so she's
Something to look forward to, maybe.
something to look forward to. And we've turned over some houses in our neighborhood, and there's 3 new families with lots of little kids. So maybe I can get one of them to come out to the Wrightstown library with me in a cute little coat.
Right. Yeah.
Well, now we have 2, but you said you set a timer, but how long does it take you to complete a painting?
I don't set a timer. I was saying, just don't dawdle and don't get caught up in the little nitty gritties of a painting. And every time I do that for too long, sometimes you have to get in there and get some of the detail. But if I can really send a painting sideways when I get into it too close. It's much better if it just flows out of you at a distance with a big brush. Those are my best paintings. And it depends on the painting. Sometimes I can do a painting in an hour. Sometimes it takes me 2 weeks. Sometimes I put it away and never want to look at it again. And then I pull it out 3 years later. And then I put it back in the closet. Or sometimes I try to work it again. I have one right over here that I've done that too. I don't know why I'm wasting my time on it. Just pull out a new damn canvas.
So the last one was, what is the best way to message you? Is it through your website?
Through my website. Yep, would be perfect. Yeah, there it comes right into my email, right into my phone. So that's a perfect way to message me.
Okay. Well,
Wait, I just want to say, if anyone wants to see my work live, they can go to the Silverman Gallery in Buckingham, PA. If you happen to be in the area, or if you live in the area, I know there's a lot of people from different places, but if you come here, I'm at the Silverman Gallery in Buckingham, PA. She always has a nice assortment of my paintings, all different sizes, all different subject matter on view. And you can also contact me. I have a whole wealth of paintings myself, and I do take commissions.
oh, we really appreciate Rhonda Garland at Silverman Gallery. She's always a terrific friend of the show
Amazing.
and
Yes.
Phillips Mill. So we thank her.
Mhm.
And we thank you, Jenny, so much for joining us on Art Talk, Jennifer Hansen Rolli.
Thank you, Laura. It was really a pleasure. And Jen, thank you so much for getting those slides up there and getting those questions out. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody for joining me tonight. I really, really loved being host on Art Talk for Phillips Mill. I love Phillips Mill.
We love you. Jen McHugh is our technical director.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night, Jen.
Thank you all for joining us on Art Talk. from Phillips Mill. Join us next month, June 11th, with James Fiorino. And I'm Laura Woma. Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone. Thank you.